Goody Two-Shoes, my name is Aubrie Rose, welcome back to my channel. So today is another reading vlog, but I'm getting kind of bored of just doing like reading vlogs. Like,
this is what I'm reading in a week.
I'm bored. And I've been consuming booktube content, which might be a bad thing, but I've had a lot of fun. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually going to theme this video. I have a lot of books. I've been pretty intentional about reading the books that I own, but I still have quite a few books that I've either started reading and never finished, or just books that I have not read at all. So I am going to take you guys through my journey of finishing all the books that I've started reading and reading all the books on my bookshelves that I haven't read. The first up is fairy tale retellings, or like YA fantasy. So I have these three books right here that I'm going to be reading in this vlog. So, a little intro. Sisters Red by Jackson Pierce. So I actually got this at a huge yard sale. I think this lady was a homeschooler and a teacher, and I found, like, I still have, this is probably the fourth book that I still have that I got at that yard sale. So this is a Red Riding Hood retelling. So I started reading this when I was probably 13, 14, and there was some content in here that was a little too much for my innocent little 13, 14-year-old self to handle. So I DNF'd it for for sexual content. It's not really. Anyway, this is the book that I'm gonna start reading first. Number 2 is Romanoff by Nadine Brandes. And so in 3 years ago, I first got my phone, and so I was first introduced to Instagram, the wonderful world of Instagram, and I followed Nadine Brandes because my dad talked about the fact that she was a writer, and I'd heard about Romanoff. I liked her personality. I was excited to get a taste of her writing. I read like the first couple pages, I think. Oh look, I found a bookmark. I got to chapter 2, and that's not enough time for me to actually get into a book and decide if I like it or not. I'm going into this with lower expectations just because I think my expectations were probably a little too high, and I really like was it Disney bought it, they didn't make it, but Anastasia movie, loved the movie, so I'm kind of excited for this. And then my latest one, I won this in a giveaway. This is The Wonderland Trials by Sarah Ella. Sarah Ella and Nadine Brandes are friends, so that's cool. And also, like, they and a few other authors are pretty big, or they have their own like little community on Instagram. Anyway, this is one of her books. I want to read all of her books because their covers are really pretty, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So this one is an Alice in Wonderland retelling, Curious Realities Book 1. The cover on this are like the dust jacket. It feels like paper, and I never had a book or felt a book that felt like this, and so it was really cool. And then this is the only hardback, and then look at that. That's what that part of it, which is cool. So this has been sitting on my bookshelves for a while, and then yesterday I totally felt like I was in a reading slump, and so I just decided to pick this up. And I went to the lake and I read the first chapter of this. I only read the first chapter of it because I brought my dog, and she was whining the whole time, and then she peed on the blanket, and also a bird pooped on my book. There's a tiny little white spot as evidence. Don't know how that happened or when that happened. It was kind of crazy, and when I looked at it, like, it was still wet, and then I looked around and I was
like, I don't see a bird. I don't know how this just happened.
I mean, I'm outside, but I mean, it was just so weird. So I only read a chapter because I felt like it, and it's actually more of a dystopian. Like, I was expecting it to be more like Heartless. It's not like Heartless. It's actually, well, it's still kind of like Marissa Meyer's writing, sort of, or like kind of ideas, because it's got some Lunar Chronicles vibes. So At first I wasn't the hugest fan of it because, or like I was a little doubtful about it just because I was like, this is not what I thought it was. But now that I do know that it's more like the Loner Chronicles, it's kind of a dystopian fairy tale retelling, I am now excited for it. So this is gonna be the last one. This is gonna be my reward for getting through the other 2 books. Hopefully I can get through these pretty quickly. I'm excited. And yeah, I'm gonna go outside and I'm gonna read this for a little bit. Yay. Okay, today is not going according to plan at all, so I'm just gonna roll with it. I am going to braid my hair, I'm gonna make some ramen, and then I'm going to finish this book, and then we'll talk about it. I didn't give you guys my thoughts anywhere throughout while I was reading it, which I feel like I want to start doing, but I did write down some thoughts in my Notion, so maybe I'll do both. I'll show you guys my Notion, I'll talk about the book, and yeah. Righty. Okay, so I think it's day like 3 or 4, I mean 2 or 3 of this challenge, and I finished Sisters Red, and by finished I mean I DNF'd it, but then I skimmed through the rest of it, so I know what happens, so I can still give kind of a rating on this. I know sometimes it makes people mad if like someone didn't finish a book and then they still rate it. I read like a significant chunk of this much left. We're at 74%, so basically like 75% of this book. So Sisters Red is a Red Riding Hood retelling from, so it's 2 sisters and they live in this world with Fenris, which are basically werewolves, but yes, so one attacked them when they were kids and killed their grandmother, so now they've spent their life hunting the Fenris and just trying to kill them all pretty much. And so it has a really cool premise. Like fairy tale retellings, love fairy tale retellings. It has a cool theme, but it flopped. So first let me give you guys the Good Clean Fun rating. So if you guys don't know, I call you guys Goody Two Shoes because I try to do good clean fun. So when it comes to books and movies, pretty much rating anything, so the good rating is for story structure. Like, did the story work? Were all the conventions of the genre there? So like conventions of a romance genre and obligatory scenes, that would be like the meet cute, the breakup scene, the almost moment,
the refusal of the call to the relationship, accepting the call to the relationship. They go on like 3 date scenes. There's a profession of love, and then happily ever after.
So those are just a few conventions of a romance book, and if those aren't there, the book doesn't work. So that's for good. Sorry, clean is I normally don't mind violence or gore in the books. I will let you guys know if it's excessive or just for a reason why I didn't like it specifically. Normally if it's just feels unnecessary or forced, but for the most part the clean revolves around language and excessive kissing, excessive touching, or spicy scenes, and if there's a lot of language, I will let you guys know about that, and that affects the clean rating. And then fun is simply, did I enjoy it? That is purely personal, and yeah, if I enjoyed the book or if I didn't. Sometimes a book doesn't work. For some reason, I absolutely enjoyed reading it. So there are some books like that. This is not one of them. Okay, so good. This book had so much potential. I'm dying. Okay, so this book had the potential to be really cool story-wise. There were some like mystery elements. It could have been so cool. And it just was not. Like, we had those eavesdropping moments where, okay, the dialogue was awful. The dialogue was not realistic at all, but we had like an eavesdropping moment where characters, the bad guys, are having a conversation that no one would ever have in real life, and we just happen to get the information, the crucial information. I hated that so much. Like, it could have been done so cool and so well, but it was just like spoon-fed, and it was like, okay, well, we have a problem, and then they go on a hunt, and then somehow we find the answer to the problem with like no no, they weren't trying to, like, they just fell into the answers. Like, it could have been a really cool mystery and they could have actually done things to, like, solve the mystery, but it didn't. The answers just fell into their lap, and that was really annoying. No. The hat move scene was kind of cool. It was sort of set up, but it's like, that is what I wanted before, and it's just like they threw it in at the end. And I think so a person got kidnapped, and that was sort of set up, but then like where she got kidnapped to and where she was being held, like, I wanted the villains' headquarters. I wanted them to be sneaking around the villains' headquarters trying to figure out all the answers to the mystery, but that's not what happened. They just happened to be there at the end, and like nothing happened there. I mean, that was the part that I skimmed, so maybe something did happen there. I was gonna give this like 2.5 stars, maybe like 2 stars, because it was set up decently. It was just had so much potential. It set up a few things that it just didn't pay off well, and it was pretty repetitive too. So yeah, probably like a 2 stars for Good. Oh, actually, I want to say one more thing about Good. So this would also encapsulate, I don't think that's the right word, but the world building. So the world building did not feel realistic. Like, I could suspend my disbelief sort of, but also, okay, 11-year-old girl killed a Fenris, okay? When they're going to kill the Fenris, it seems like it's so difficult and it's so hard. It's like, if it's so hard, how did an 11-year-old kill a Fenris? And it seemed like the wolves should be, like, they could be really cool bad villains. Like, it had the horror elements with a huge divide between the hero and the villain, but it wasn't realistic. Like, how did an 11-year-old kill a Fenris? And y'all can't, now that you've had training for years, and it didn't work. Yeah, so that part too, and then yeah, the fighting scenes weren't the best, and they had, like, I think they were hatchets, can't remember, but like, and they keep talking about like cutting the arms and limbs, and I'm like, go for the head, go for the torso. Why are we wasting time with like limbs? It was bad. Clean. I got off on a tangent. I'm coming back now. Where was I at? Okay, so yeah, there was kind of like, so Rosie and Silas were together, but then Scarlett has a scene where she finds out that they were together, and she runs away because she's mad at them. Silas finds her, and I think I must have skimmed some of the scene, but basically she's just like, oh, she was like, I can't be in those roles. Can you imagine me as a wife, as a mother? Like, that's not me. And then I think she was just talking about how she could never find love, and then Silas is like, I fell in love with you first, and then they kissed. No, that's cheating. That is not okay, and I don't know why they did that. And then they were like, oh, no sparks. I was like that means anything. Like, that is crossing a line for me. Okay, so that was bad. And then there was some language. I would say there was one F-bomb, and then the rest of them weren't terrible. It was a little bit of language sprinkled in. There was actually some nudity though. There were some unnecessary sexual references. Just forced, didn't really need to be there. So I'm also giving it a 2 for clean. And then fun, I had a lot of emotions, I guess, but I did not really. I enjoyed the potential. I think if this book was fixed, it could be a really cool TV show. Like, it was giving Vampire Diaries potential. I think it could be a really cool TV series, just not like this. Not like this at all. But like the world and maybe the characters. Wasn't really connected to the characters. Didn't enjoy it. DNF'd it. That was me just rambling about this for a while. So anyway, 2 stars / DNF. But I think, so remember Romanoff? I was like, it didn't grab me right away. I think this is probably gonna be 5 stars. This is gonna be an amazing book. Romanoff is next. I am going to go start this. I'm gonna read it outside. Should we say how many chapters it is? This one has discussion questions too. What's with the discussion questions? Okay, 40 chapters. I'm excited. It's getting shorter. Maybe I probably won't finish it today. Maybe tomorrow. What's tomorrow? Tomorrow's Thursday? Thursday. Tomorrow's Thursday. Anyway, that's irrelevant. I'm gonna read this now. Hi, I'm back and I'm doing a little bit better after this book, but not much because now I'm depressed. Let's talk about it. So Romanoff, I'm sure you've guessed, is a Anastasia Romanoff retelling, but it's not exactly what I thought it was going to be. By reading the back, I thought it was going to be more of like a fantasy war, because here's the line, okay, it's talking about this guy, she likes him, he might even like her, that is until she's on one side of a firing squad and he's on the other. What I imagined by that is them both being on the front lines of a war. That is not what is happening in this book. So this book, it really is like a history book told from Anastasia's point of view with some magic sprinkled in. So like the second half is like purely fictional pretty much, but then the first half of it is like what happened from their perspective, really diving deep into all of those emotions. And I'm pretty sure this is at the beginning, or this is during World War II. I could be wrong, but I was also reading another World War II book and they were talking about the Red Army. They were talking about the Red Army here, and I'm going to be reading some books about it. So it was kind of like reading The Hiding Place, or probably Anne Frank's diary. I haven't read that book, but I have read The Hiding Place, and it felt similar to that, and only with some fantasy sprinkled in. So now that we know what this is about, now for the Good Clean Fun rating. For good, I rated this 4 stars. The book worked. Sometimes it was a little too descriptive, so what would happen is like a big event would start, so like a scene would start and something would happen and then someone would say something, I'm pretty sure, and then I would skip to the next dialogue tag because that felt like that was like the next thing that, and then I would read through to the end of the page, and then I would try to go back and read the description, but really it was just a description of what was happening and I was already kind of in the scene, so that kind of pulled me out a little bit. And I think it just messed with the pacing. I don't know if that was just me or if it bothered other people, if there was just too much description. I think there was just a little too much description and I was like already in the scene, and then she was describing what was happening and I was already kind of in it, and so that took me out. I'm not sure. I think that's kind of what happened. There is a resurrection trope, so if that bothers you, I wouldn't let it keep you from reading the book, but if you don't like that trope, just be aware that that's in here, and it does get a little frustrating, but I think she does set it up well, and I think it works well within the magic system. I think it works. So 4 stars for good. For clean, 4.5. There was a little bit of kissing, and that's really it. I mean, of course there's violence and it's kind of emotionally distressing, but I wouldn't let you keep that from reading this book, because I think this is a really good book to read because it really puts you in the shoes of people who were suffering during that time, and I think that's good to be aware of and good to know and good to think about. And then fun. I didn't really enjoy this book. I don't know if that was the point, but I don't know if this was the book for me or if it just wasn't the book for me at this time, because it wasn't what I was expecting it to be, and so there was that. I did kind of go in blind. I didn't realize what it was that I was reading. I don't know if that's, I think I was just expecting more retelling, and it is retelling, but it's also just, it's very historically accurate as well. The blurb does a terrible job of explaining what the book is about. The blurb needs to be fixed to keep other people from suffering the heartache and surprise that I did. I don't know what I was expecting. What I was expecting is not what I got. For the first half of the book, it is depressing, but I feel like the author, Nadine Brandes, does a really good job of keeping us in the same place, doing the same things, but not making it feel repetitive. Like, I was never really bored with what was happening. I was just bored as a reading, but I think I might be in a reading slump too. So I was never really bored with the book. Like, I kept reading. It wasn't like, oh, I know what's gonna happen next and I'm bored. Kind of like with Sisters Read. It was just the same thing over and over again. Like, it was the same thing, but it was different, or it felt different. And I don't know how she did that, and I want to know her secrets because I have a book that I feel like is gonna be kind of like that, and I need to know how to not make it repetitive and feel boring. Okay, so that was really cool. But I did feel like I wasn't super connected with the characters. Like, I was kind of connected with them, and then we kind of got less connected with them after something happened, and then something like the midpoint, the really bad thing happened, and it felt like right before then I was kind of disconnected from all the characters. So then when that happened, it didn't rip my heart out as much as I felt like it should have. Like, it was still a terrible thing, but maybe I'm just a terrible person. But it didn't gut wrench me as much as I felt like it should have, because I didn't feel like as connected to them anymore. I don't know. I don't remember why. I don't remember why it was weird. It could have just been me. But yes. So then in the second half, I finally did start to feel a little bit more connected to them again. But that's when we had all the resurrection tropes, so I was a little iffy about that. Like, I would be like, this doesn't feel like it works, and like they rationalized it, and then I realized with that, like, oh, that was kind of set up. The end was kind of making me cry. It did feel like it wasn't supposed to happen, but also set up. It was really weird. It was almost like two things were set up, and I was expecting one thing, but then the other thing happened. Maybe that was just me. And then, yeah, it kind of made me cry at the end. It wasn't really my favorite book, and I didn't really connect with it as much, but I do feel like it has some good themes. Most of the themes are like hope and redemption, but I guess my takeaway was like, how would I react in this situation? What would I do? Or if I was in a similar situation, and then what can I do as a person to keep that situation from happening to anyone, from happening to me and my family? And yeah, those were kind of my takeaways, because these were real things that happened, and there were real concentration camps and terrible things that happened to people. And so, like, how can we keep that from happening again? So for like how much I enjoyed it, it was probably 3 stars. Now that I'm not reading it anymore, I feel like it was still a good book, and I think it can be a good book without me liking it. And this was also really interesting because I feel like I was able to read the book and look at it subjectively and know that even though it didn't really feel like the book for me, or wasn't something that I wanted to read right then, like, it's still a good book. And then The Wonderland Trials. Now I'm excited for this book. I think I've been in a little bit of a reading slump, so these books have been difficult, but I'm excited for this one because I think this is more of my speed, my kind of book. Was it Lunar Chronicles and Heartless kind of mixed together, which I'm super excited for. And so yeah. Alrighty friends, I have finished the last fairy tale retelling. This one, okay, so it started off, and at first I didn't really know what it was that I was reading. Again, I never seem to go into books with good expectations anymore. But once I figured out that it was more of a dystopian and less of like a fairy tale retelling, I was excited for it because I thought it was going to be kind of like the Lunar Chronicles. And it was fun for a little bit, and then it got boring because the first act lasted too long, and our main character was not very likable, or I didn't like her, and she was a reluctant hero for too long. Like, I was excited when I was first reading it. I was really excited to get to the new world. I was excited for her to accept the call to adventure because she seemed like she already kind of wanted to go into the new world, but then it was kind of like she got dragged into it, whether she liked it or not, which is not really how it's supposed to work. So, yeah. For good, I would say I forgot about that first part. The first act took too long. Other than that, and one other romance beat. There were 2 romance beats that kind of happened at the exact same time, and I don't think they were supposed to. Kind of happened a little too fast, like it was slow, then it was pow pow, and then it was the same pace again. So the pacing for the romance beats was a little bit off, so maybe 4 stars, 3.5 for good, for it worked. And also it's a Wonderland retelling, so it's not supposed to work entirely, but I think those couple of things could have been fixed and it would have worked better. Then for clean, it was very clean. Probably like a 4.5, if not a 5. I don't know exactly what I'm doing for that one. And then fun, I enjoyed it, and then it got bored, and then I got tired. So I think maybe 3 stars, maybe 3.4. I think this is a 4-star book all in all. So yeah. Thank you guys for joining me on this adventure. This was fun. I'm glad to have some more of my books read. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. I will see you in the next one. Bye.